You can't break addiction through control. Trying to control is just another habit. You've worked to push back, to avoid, to assure yourself you'd quit. Yet every effort comes from the same mind that built the urge. You don't remove a knot by pulling tighter. You let it fall loose. In this talk, I'll show you that ending addiction isn't about force, shame, or discipline. It's about insight. When you understand the pattern fully, the struggle disappears for you now. I'll uncover the deeper source of addiction, why the mind holds onto it, what it's truly trying to feel, and how awareness turns that pull into release. You'll see how to watch desire without merging with it, how to let go without pushing yourself, and how to find the quiet ease no substance can create. When clarity arrives, effort naturally fades. You've been told addiction means failure, that you're broken, that you must push harder, restrict more, control more. Yet, that very effort keeps the loop alive. The more you fight, the tighter it wraps around you. Addiction isn't the real problem. Not seeing it clearly is. The moment you witness it without shame, without attack, something loosens. You start to sense that your addiction isn't your enemy. It's trying in its confused way to numb hurt and make you feel complete. The issue isn't the urge, it's the lack of awareness surrounding it. Once awareness appears, addiction is starved of what sustains it. What follows isn't tension but release. And so here I'll guide you beyond the psychology of addiction, beyond the battle and blame, into the origin of why it takes hold. You'll realize addiction rises from the same place as wanting, as longing, as love. The same force that creates bondage can create freedom. We'll look at how awareness dissolves urge, how pleasure shifts into calm, and how insight brings ease naturally. Stay with me, because this isn't about quitting your addiction. It's about waking up from it. When you see how simple it really is, you smile. Because what felt like a mountain was just a shadow of confusion. Here's something most people never notice. Addiction doesn't start with the object. It doesn't start with alcohol, cigarettes, chemicals, gambling, or even your screen. It begins much earlier in a place so familiar you rarely examine it. It begins with the quiet, subtle wish to leave yourself behind. The truth is, the real addiction isn't to the substance. It's a pull toward forgetting. You're hooked on slipping away from your own thoughts, your own quiet, your own presence. The substance is only an entrance, a weak replacement for awareness, a brief method to mute what you never learned to meet. When you take the pill or pour the drink or scroll endlessly through the same screen, you're not trying to harm yourself. You're trying to outrun the noise inside. The same noise that whispers you're not enough. The same loneliness without a name. The same empty ache within that feels impossible to sit with. The substance is just a passage into forgetting. Forgetting that emptiness, that anxiety, that constant storm of thought. You call it pleasure. You call it escape. But deep down, you know it's only a momentary break, a small gap between one surge of hurt and the next. And here's the twist. Each time you flee, you strengthen the cage. The more you try to forget, the more you confirm the belief that something within must be avoided. The cigarette doesn't ease the ache. It shoves it deeper. The drink doesn't erase the hollow. It hides its echo. Every instant of unaware pleasure leaves behind a bigger thirst for the next one. And the tragedy is that what you run from isn't an enemy. It's a forgotten side of you wanting to be seen. When you drink, when you smoke, when you numb out, you're trying to quiet the inner noise. But have you ever asked what that noise truly is? It isn't darkness. It isn't insanity. It's simply your own unspoken truth calling for your awareness. The thoughts that race, the feelings that sting, the loneliness that presses. They aren't flaws. They are signals. They are life asking to be felt, energy asking to be understood. The issue isn't the urge. The issue is your hesitation to feel it completely. You want the energy without the clarity. You want the sensation without the presence that makes it real. Picture a man drowning in water barely deep. He's flailing, panicking, crying for rescue. But if he just stopped fighting, he would find his feet could reach the earth. Addiction is exactly this. The mind drowning in its own shallow churn, forgetting that calm was always beneath it. Or picture the beggar who sleeps each night on a stone pillow, unaware it's a gem. You have carried the gift of awareness within you all this time, but you've chosen the ease of numbness over the challenge of waking up. The substance, whatever shape it takes, offers false rest. It gives you forgetting, but never release. It numbs the sorrow, but it also numbs the possibility of true joy. It quiets the mind only by pushing you into unconsciousness. And in that numbness, you drift farther from yourself. But awareness quiets the mind by lighting it up. One road leads to sleep, the other leads to awakening. And that is why addiction can never end by battling the substance. Because the substance was never the source. It was only the sign. So the first step isn't to drop the substance. It's to understand the escape. Watch what you're fleeing. Sit with the discomfort, the agitation, the longing. Don't resist it. Don't bury it. Don't label it. Simply stay with it. The moment you stop running, something unexpected begins. The tension starts to shift. It doesn't disappear at once, but it softens because it's no longer fighting your awareness. For the first time, you're not abandoning yourself. And when you can sit quietly, when you can remain present without distraction even briefly, the root of addiction starts to fade. You realize the calm you chased in substances was within you all along, waiting, steady, silent, whole. You were just too occupied running to see it. So addiction isn't your foe. It's a misunderstood guide. It reveals exactly where connection with yourself was lost. It highlights the wound you've avoided. Once you see this, the urge to escape dissolves naturally. There's nothing to clench, nothing to fight. Awareness begins healing what resistance once protected. And now, seeing that addiction rises from forgetting, from the frantic attempt to avoid yourself, the next question naturally comes. How do you remember again? How do you turn this same restless energy into presence instead of escape? Let's move deeper into the hidden mechanics of craving. How desire, when unseen clearly, becomes the snare that keeps you unconscious. Here's what most people never understand. Craving isn't your enemy. It's misunderstood force. Desire itself is pure. It is life flowing through you, seeking expression, seeking completion. The problem begins when desire becomes unaware. When you chase the shadow of fulfillment instead of the clarity of presence, addiction isn't the product of too much desire. It's the product of desire without insight. The same energy that becomes craving can shift into creativity, into meditation, into love. But when the mind claims it, when it becomes a tool for escape, desire turns into a snare. Craving is the mind's strategy to dodge emptiness. The mind fears stillness because in stillness, it loses its ground. When all becomes quiet, the sense of I begins to soften and the ego quivers. So the mind creates desire after desire, distraction after distraction to keep itself occupied, to keep itself intact. Have you noticed this? The instant you get what you wanted, another want arises. You buy something new, and before the joy even lands, you're already searching for the next hit. This endless thirst isn't because life lacks meaning. It's because the mind feeds on dissatisfaction. Its very survival depends on it. The mind promises satisfaction but delivers repetition. A cycle that resembles living but is really avoidance. And every craving carries the same taste, a blend of excitement and unease. When a craving starts, there's anticipation, a burst of energy, a belief that this time it will be different, that this high will stay, that this comfort will finally last. But once the moment fades, the emptiness returns, and then the guilt follows. That sinking sense of failure, the thought that something is wrong with me. But nothing is wrong with you. Desire is simply built to stay unfulfilled, because desire cannot survive true completion. The moment you genuinely receive what you longed for, desire dissolves, and the mind fears that ending. So it shifts the target, creates a fresh want, a new escape. It keeps you circling endlessly, tired, unsure, craving more. And the more you push a craving away, the stronger it grows. This is the harsh paradox of the mind. Whatever you fight, you nourish. When you say, I must not drink, I must not smoke, I must not slip again, you keep the picture of the urge alive. You're feeding the very seed you hope to pull out. That's why resistance never succeeds. It's just another kind of obsession. It may change the form of the addiction, but not its essence. You quit drinking and start overeating. You stop smoking and start talking non-stop. The shape changes, but the unconsciousness stays. Seeing this cycle is liberation. The mind creates the craving. The craving sparks the action. The action produces guilt, and guilt drives you back into craving. A flawless wheel of suffering. Awareness breaks that wheel. When you observe the craving without attack, its pattern reveals itself. You begin to notice its timing, its signals, its rising and falling. And in that simple noticing, something remarkable takes place. The craving begins to lose its power. It stops controlling you. It becomes see-through. You can watch it come and go like waves on the ocean's surface. The wave still forms, but now you realize you are not the wave. You are the ocean holding it. Let me share a story. There's an old tale of a monkey reaching into a jar for rice. When he tries to pull his hand out, he cannot, because his fist is clenched. He's trapped not by the jar or the rice, but by his refusal to release his grip. He could be free instantly, yet he holds tight. Addiction is exactly this. You aren't trapped by the substance. You're trapped by the holding. You cling to pleasure, to ease, to the illusion of control. The moment you loosen your grip, you're free. But letting go calls for trust. Trust that emptiness is not an ending, but a beginning. Desire is like a mirage in a desert. From afar, it looks like water. You rush towards it, but as you reach it, it fades. You fall again, and another mirage appears farther ahead, so you run once more. The chase repeats. But one day, when you finally stop and truly look, you discover something incredible. there is no desert at all. The thirst was never for water. It was for awareness. Once this becomes clear, the running ends by itself. To understand desire is to change it. When you recognize that craving isn't attacking you, that it's simply life's energy seeking its own source, something inside softens. You stop blaming yourself, and the guilt begins to fade. You see that craving isn't personal, it's mechanical. It comes from the body, the mind, the old human patterns you inherited. And once you recognize the machine, you can step outside of it. The gears may still move, but you're no longer caught between them. You can't destroy desire, but you can illuminate it. When light is brought to desire, it becomes devotion. The same energy that once dragged you downward begins to lift you upward. You start to see that true fulfillment was never in the desired object, but in the awareness of the desire itself. That awareness is completeness. That awareness is meditation. And when you truly see this, the entire structure of craving falls apart. You stop chasing, you stop resisting, you stop gripping. You simply observe, and observing transforms everything. Now that you understand how craving operates, the next step is to bring in the only real medicine, awareness. Because craving survives in darkness, but even a small light of seeing can dissolve it. Let's move into that light now, into the simple living presence that melts addiction without effort, without force, without struggle. Let's explore how awareness becomes the cure for craving, the light that ends the shadow. Awareness is the one medicine that heals without creating new wounds, the one power that ends craving without turning into another desire. Everything else, control, discipline, guilt, only thickens the shadow. You've tried them all, haven't you? You've told yourself over and over, this time I'll stop. This time I'll be stronger. This time I'll change. And for a few days, maybe a few weeks, the mind cooperates. But soon the same hunger returns, wearing a new disguise. Control can push desire down for a while, but it cannot transform it. Because control is rooted in fear. And fear always strengthens what it opposes. Awareness, however, has no fear. It looks directly at the craving, at the ache, at the hunger, and it recognizes its nature. And in that recognition, the shadow disappears, because darkness cannot remain where light is present. When you bring awareness to craving, something quiet yet powerful begins to unfold. A gap appears. The craving still shows up. The body still remembers. The mind still suggests. But now there is space between you and it. And that space is freedom. That space is awareness. You begin to notice that craving is simply energy. Not good, not bad, not holy, not sinful. It rises, peaks, and fades. The body might still shake. The thoughts might still murmur, but now you are the one watching, and the watcher cannot be touched. This simple act of seeing without judging, without pushing away, marks the start of real transformation. Think of watching a child throw a tantrum. The more you argue with the child, the louder the screams. But if you stay calm and let the storm pass, eventually the child quiets and rests. The mind behaves the same. Craving is the tantrum of unconscious energy. It grows louder when opposed. When you watch it softly, without anger, without interference, it begins to lose its momentum. The watcher holds immense strength, not the strength of force, but the strength of presence. A candle doesn't battle the dark, it simply shines. And by shining, the darkness recedes. In the same way, awareness doesn't fight addiction. It reveals it. The moment you bring awareness to craving, not as a flaw, not as a war, but as a movement of energy, it begins to dissolve. Because awareness is truth, and truth naturally cleans. It burns away illusion without harshness. Buddha understood this under the Bodhi tree. He didn't fight the mind, didn't resist desire or fear. He simply observed. Thoughts arose, of pleasure, of worry, of memory, of longing. And he watched. Gradually all that was false fell away. The mind, worn out by its own effort, dropped into stillness. That stillness wasn't created. It was uncovered. It had always been there, beneath the noise. When you observe craving, don't dissect it. Don't say this is right, this is wrong, this shouldn't be. Just see it as it is, a wave rising in the ocean of your being. Watch its beginning, its crest, its fading. You'll find that no craving lasts forever. Every wave returns to the sea. The watcher doesn't stop the wave. It simply knows it cannot drown. This knowing, this easy awareness, is freedom. And yet, awareness must grow into something fuller. If you stop only at watching, awareness can become stiff, distant. It can become a subtle form of control. Real awareness softens into understanding, into compassion, into love for the very thing you once saw as your enemy. You begin to realize that addiction was never against you. It was your unconscious self trying to return home. The energy that reached outward for escape is the same energy now reaching inward to awaken. Desire was never the issue. It was only misdirected. The moment you see this, guilt dissolves. And when guilt falls away, half of addiction falls with it. Because guilt is the glue that keeps the cycle turning. Craving, indulging, shame, then craving again. You repeat the habit, then feel bad, and the shame pushes you right back into the habit. Awareness breaks this cycle not by rejecting it, but by shining gently through it. It says, I see you. It lets even the darkness exist without fear. And in that acceptance, change unfolds on its own. You don't need to force your addiction away. Force is aggression, and aggression never heals. Instead, watch with softness, with patience, with a warm curiosity. The same way you might watch a river move. You can't stop the river, but you can step out of its flow. And once you're on the riverbank simply observing, you see clearly that the river never had power over you. This is the alchemy of awareness, the art of turning poison into fragrance. When you watch a craving without judgment, the energy locked inside it begins to rise. The same heat that once burned you becomes the glow of consciousness. It's like a phoenix lifting from its ashes. The old self dissolves, the new self emerges. And when you taste the shift, even briefly, you recognize something deeply true. There was never anything to battle, nothing to repair. Addiction was never the sickness, unawareness was. And now that awareness has arrived, the sickness cannot remain. So let awareness become your way of being. Not a technique, but a presence. Watch and let the light grow. Because when awareness matures, it becomes understanding. And understanding is never harsh. It is warm, kind, forgiving. It sees the whole picture, the hurt, the desire, the mistake, and it holds them all gently. From that tenderness, real change blossoms. Now let's move into that deeper stage, beyond simple watching and into understanding. Let's see how awareness ripens into compassion. How the same energy that once harmed you becomes the energy that restores you. Awareness is the doorway, but understanding is the blooming. Awareness is like light entering a dim room, revealing everything hidden. But understanding is what arises when you stop staring at what you've uncovered and begin to sense the truth within it. Many people stop at awareness. They see their addiction. They notice their thoughts. They notice their habits. And they assume that simply noticing is enough. But awareness without compassion can turn cold, distant, even harsh. True understanding is warm. It softens what awareness reveals. Awareness exposes the wound, but understanding is what heals it. Here's what I mean. When you begin watching your craving, your anger, your loneliness, you start to recognize that none of it is foreign. It is part of you. The same life that moves the trees, the same force that lights the stars is moving through you as desire. Addiction is just that life energy twisted, trapped, misdirected. It is not evil. It is not wrong. It is life searching for itself. The very flame that burned you was meant to illuminate you. Understanding means realizing that even your darkness was trying to lead you toward wholeness. The drink, the smoke, the rush, the constant chase, each one was a mistaken attempt to feel complete. And once you see this, something gentle awakens inside. Judgment drops away, and love enters. When you see craving as energy, not as an enemy, everything shifts. You no longer say, I must eliminate this. Instead you say, let me observe it. Let me feel it. Let me understand what it's trying to show me. And in that openness, craving changes. It becomes a guide. You begin to notice the pattern beneath it, the loneliness it covers, the fear it protects, the yearning it expresses. You start to see that what you have been calling addiction was never working against you. It was life whispering, look deeper. This is the turning point. The same energy that once flowed downward into addiction begins rising upward into awareness. The fire that once burned you becomes the fire that cleanses you. It's like a river that overflowed because something blocked its way. When the obstacle is removed, the river finds its natural path back to the ocean. The same water that once caused destruction now sustains life. The energy of desire is neutral. It can damage or it can create, depending on whether it moves in darkness or in light. Awareness turns it into light. Understanding turns it into love. But to reach this shift, you must release guilt completely. Guilt is the greatest barrier to understanding. The moment guilt appears, clarity disappears. You become tense, ashamed, closed. And when you close, you stop hearing. Guilt speaks from the past. Understanding lives in the present. When understanding arrives, you begin to see that your addiction, your mistakes, your hurt, everything was part of a larger unfolding. A journey meant to bring you back to yourself. There is nothing to forgive because nothing was truly wrong, only unseen. You didn't choose addiction. It formed in the absence of awareness. Once awareness enters, the old pattern fades naturally. There's a Zen saying, the obstacle is the path. That is understanding. You recognize that the very thing you tried so hard to escape was actually the doorway to your freedom. Your addiction, your craving, your conflict, they weren't detours. They were the exact path you needed to walk to wake up. Life is wise in that way. It never abandons you. It will even use your darkness to guide you back into light. It's like the story of the phoenix. The bird burns, turns to ashes, and from those ashes rises again, renewed. That is how transformation unfolds. The ego, the addiction, the false identity must burn away. And in that burning, something golden appears. A consciousness that cannot be shaken. The fire you feared was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to free you from invisible chains. When you realize this, gratitude replaces guilt. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" you begin to say, "Thank you. Even this was part of my awakening." That gratitude is understanding. It isn't mental, it is lived. It comes from the heart, not the head. You begin to move with a calm inside because you're no longer battling yourself. You trust life, even in disorder, even in error. You see that existence never fails. It only creates chances for awareness. And slowly, a new intelligence starts leading your life. Not the mind that measures, but the intelligence of being. The natural wisdom that rises the moment resistance stops. You no longer overthink. You simply understand. And the difference is profound. Analysis divides, understanding unites. Analysis says, this is right, this is wrong. Understanding says, all of it belongs. And when you say yes to everything as it is, addiction fades. Not because you destroyed it, but because you stopped feeding it with conflict. This is the mystery of awareness growing into understanding. The same energy that once dragged you into unconscious repetition becomes the energy that brings you into awakening. Addiction was not your failure, it was your invitation to awaken. And as this understanding ripens, something even deeper becomes possible. The urge to control fades away, and you realize that freedom never comes from effort. Transformation isn't something you do, it's something you allow. When you stop trying to steer life and simply trust it, even addiction falls away on its own, like a leaf drifting from a branch when the season turns. So now let's step into that deeper realm, into surrender, where transformation occurs without force, where what once felt like a problem becomes a kind of prayer. Here's a paradox, yet it is the deepest truth. You cannot end addiction. You cannot drop it through effort. You cannot quit it through will. You cannot outsmart it through control, because the very push to end addiction keeps it breathing. The energy that fights is the same energy that created it. The ego is clever. It whispers, "I'll beat this habit. I'll discipline myself. I'll overcome this desire." But every time you say "I," the same false center that craves pretends to cure. The doer and the addict are not two different selves. They are one. You cannot heal the mind with the same mind. You cannot extinguish fire with fire. That's why people struggle for years, swinging between shame and effort, relapse and resolve, always trapped in the same loop. Because the one trying to escape is the prison. Control feeds the ego. Surrender dissolves it. You were trained to fight, to conquer, to push through, but you cannot fight your own shadow. The more you resist, the more it thrives. The mind lives on conflict. It grows stronger when you give it an enemy, even if the enemy is your own addiction. Your struggle becomes its fuel. It's like someone sinking in quicksand. The more he thrashes, the faster he sinks. The only way out is to stop struggling, to loosen, to become still. Stillness is surrender. And the moment you stop fighting, something miraculous occurs. The mind loses its grip because there's nothing left to oppose. The addiction that once felt solid begins to fade. It unravels, not through effort but through clarity. Real surrender is not defeat. It's the recognition that there was never anything to fight. When you understand addiction, not as an idea, but through direct, quiet observation, you see it was never the enemy. It was your own energy flowing in the wrong direction, calling out for awareness. And once you truly see this, the struggle ends on its own. The addict doesn't need punishment. He needs compassion. You can only release something when you stop attacking yourself. The ego survives on self-blame. It loves calling itself a sinner, a failure, a victim, because that identity keeps it alive. Surrender means dropping even that identity. You simply say, yes, this is here. I am not against it. And in that, yes, everything changes. When you stop fighting the craving, you begin to feel it fully. You notice its texture, the tightness in your chest, the rush in your blood, the whisper saying just one more time. You see it all with awareness, not judgment. And suddenly you recognize the craving has no power on its own. It is only as strong as your resistance. You were feeding it every time you pushed it away. You were energizing it through your struggle. The moment you stop resisting, the craving fades like smoke in open air. The one who was fighting to let go disappears, and in that disappearance, addiction falls away by itself. You don't drop it. It drops you. Surrender is often misunderstood. People think it means weakness, but surrender is the highest form of strength. Only the strong can surrender, because surrender requires trust. The weak cling to control, to rules, to routines, to effort. The strong dare to release. They have the courage to fall into the unknown. And when you fall into the unknown, life catches you, because you were never falling into emptiness. You were falling into existence. You were falling back into your own being. The leaf that lets go of the tree does not die. It dances with the wind, drifting gently into the soil that will one day feed the next tree. That is how surrender feels: graceful, natural, alive. You were taught to stand against life, to wrestle with it, to control it. But life is not a puzzle to solve. It is a mystery to experience. The more you tighten your grip, the more life slips through your fingers. Look at your own breath. You don't force it. It happens. Your heartbeat, you don't control it. It continues on its own. The same intelligence that beats your heart, that lights the stars, that moves rivers toward the sea, also knows how to balance your inner world. But you stopped trusting it. You put the ego in charge. And the ego is a terrible driver, blind, anxious, always jerking the wheel. When you surrender, you let life steer again. You move with existence instead of against it. In that surrender, innocence returns. The innocence buried under fear and control. The innocence you once had as a child, curious, open, unashamed. Innocence knows no addiction because it hides from nothing. It accepts every feeling, every thought, every shadow. It doesn't need to escape because it doesn't divide life into good or bad, sacred or sinful. It simply feels, sees, and continues. When you rediscover that innocence, addiction becomes impossible. Osho once said, "You cannot renounce anything you still desire. You can only understand it, and it disappears." Surrender is the flowering of understanding. You don't renounce addiction. You outgrow it. Like a snake slipping out of old skin, you release what no longer fits your being. It falls away quietly, almost unnoticed. You don't wake up one morning shouting victory. You simply notice one day that the old craving doesn't visit anymore. And if it does, it no longer scares you. It's just a shadow passing across your sky. And in that moment of surrender, a deep peace fills you. Not the peace of winning, but the peace of belonging. You realize there was never an enemy, never a battle, never even an addict. Only energy, misunderstood, simply moving toward awareness. You feel a lightness now, freedom not from winning, but from no longer needing to win. What once felt like addiction has become awareness in motion. And once surrender has settled, once the old struggle has fallen away, something new arises. A state beyond effort, beyond avoidance, beyond grasping. Freedom. Not freedom from anything, but freedom within everything. Let us enter this final space where you live without addiction, without escape, without searching, where life itself is enough. When surrender deepens into silence, when you stop asking life to save you and start letting it unfold as it is, something astonishing happens. The urge to run fades. You wake one morning and there is no craving, no knot in your chest, no battle waiting at the door. Only space. The same energy that once pulled you into old habits now feels open, fluid, alive. It moves through you as creativity, as joy, as love, as quiet presence. Freedom from addiction is not about self-denial. It is about awakening. And when awakening happens, the impulse to escape dissolves. Because there is nothing left to flee. When you stop escaping, life regains its color. Every feeling becomes vivid again. Even sadness has its beauty. Even pain has its truth. You no longer need to numb anything because you've discovered that everything, when seen clearly, contains its own peace. Before, you used the substance to escape discomfort, to escape the hollow place inside. But now you realize that hollow space was never emptiness. It was spaciousness. It was the vast sky of your being waiting for your recognition. You mistook the vastness for loneliness. You tried to fill it with noise, with pleasure, with intoxication, because you hadn't yet learned how to rest in it. But now that surrender has happened, you understand. The sky was never asking to be filled. It was asking to be seen. Freedom from addiction doesn't mean life becomes flawless. It means you stop demanding flawlessness from life. You still feel waves, joy, sadness, fear, excitement, but they come and go like clouds across the sky. You don't cling. You don't resist. You simply let them pass. This is what it means to live without escape, to let life move through you completely, with no hiding, no pretending, no need to numb. And because you allow everything, even pain grows softer. The resistance was the suffering, not the moment itself. When you stop resisting, pain loses its sharpness. The present becomes enough. You no longer need a drink to feel alive. You no longer need stimulation to feel joy, because presence itself becomes intoxicating. You start noticing simple miracles, the sound of rain, the rhythm of your breath, the warmth of sunlight on your skin. Life was never boring. Your absence made it seem that way. Now that you are here, even the smallest detail glows. You can sit in silence and feel whole because you've stopped searching outward to fill what was never empty. This is what it means to outgrow addiction. Not to suppress it, not to battle it, but to rise beyond the need for it. You outgrow the urge to escape because awareness itself is so full, so deeply satisfying that anything else feels clumsy beside it. The same energy that once ran toward oblivion now celebrates being alive. What was once tension becomes tenderness. What was once craving becomes creativity. You may paint, you may sing, you may sit quietly, doing nothing. It doesn't matter. Everything flows naturally, without force, without that restless hunger for distraction. There's a story I love. The sky remains clear even as clouds drift across it. It doesn't chase them, doesn't cling to them, doesn't oppose them. It knows they belong to the weather, not to its essence. You are that sky. Your thoughts, cravings, emotions, they're just passing weather. Let them come, let them go. Do not identify with any of it. When you realize this, you live as the sky, vast, untouched, open. Addiction cannot survive in that vastness. It needs boundaries. It needs a solid me to grasp. And when that illusion softens, addiction has nothing left to hold. To live without escape is to live like a child. Spontaneous, curious, innocent. A child doesn't run from life. He explores it. He feels fully, laughs loudly, cries honestly. And because he doesn't label any feeling as wrong, he moves through life with ease. That's why children seem so alive. They haven't learned to hide from themselves. As awareness deepens, you rediscover that innocence. You stop hiding behind masks. You live honestly, gently, awake. Life becomes simple again because you're no longer divided within. When you live without escape, you realize freedom was never a goal. It was your nature all along. It's not something the mind earns. It's what remains when the mind stops running. You can't possess freedom because freedom is what you are. It's the quiet joy that has always waited for you beneath the noise of craving. You don't find peace, you return to it. And as this recognition matures, falling back into addiction becomes impossible. Not because you fight it, but because it simply holds no pull anymore. Once you've tasted consciousness, the appeal of unconsciousness fades completely. The high that once pulled you now feels dull beside the brightness of presence. You look at the old habit and smile, not with pride, but with understanding. It was simply part of the path. You even feel grateful for it because it brought you here, to this vast inner silence that needs no escape. And so, the circle completes itself. Addiction was never your enemy. It was your guide. It revealed where you were asleep. It led you toward awareness. And now that you are awake, the teacher dissolves. Only the wisdom remains. Live fully, live consciously, live without escape. Let life itself become your meditation. Let awareness nourish you. And let freedom be not a destination, but your natural state.